Yo, what's going on everybody? My name's Joe and I'm back with another Genshin Impact video. In this video I'd like to discuss one of the most underrated sets in the game. And if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail or title, this video is going to be about the Star Glitter set, the Blackcliff weapons. I've heard content creators and the community dump on them consistently, and I think they might be slightly misled. So in this breakdown I'll tell you why I think they're one of the better sets you could run, and I'll compare them to their Battle Pass counterparts. I'll get into why I'm calling them counterparts in a minute. But most importantly, I'm going to break down why I think some of them might just be worth having. So, let's start off by taking a look at them. They cost Star Glitter, which is generally a pay-to-win resource, but they really don't cost that much considering Star Glitter is a byproduct of summoning, which everyone wants to do anyways, and is kind of the point of the gacha system. The primary reason I think they're at the very least viable, if not good options, for weapons is because of the stat right here. Crit damage is one of the key pieces in scaling your build up to deal with late game content. If you're running a battle pass weapon, they all have crit rate secondaries, which means you can run a crit damage circlet. But in this case, the opposite's true. You can run your crit rate circlet and run this for a good damage balance. Now Joe, what do you mean by a good damage balance? To elaborate on what I mean by good damage balance, there's a formula. If you can get about 150% of your base attack in bonus attack without using a headpiece, you should be using a crit rate or crit damage headpiece. And then, once you're focusing crit, the rough guideline should be 1 crit rate percent to 2 crit damage percent once your crit rate has broken 25%. So, let's use my Keishing as an example. My Keishing's attack is about 1950, which, off of her base attack of 830, it should be about 2k, so it should be about bonus 1200, so she's a little short there. Her crit rate is 76%, and her crit damage is 158%, so it's not exactly 1 to 2, but it's very close to in that range. Now, the sets I'm using to get these stats are a crit rate secondary weapon and a crit rate circlet, but I have very good crit damage stats on some of my artifacts, such as this gladiator flower. Now, let's say the reverse is true, and all of these artifacts have buku extra crit rate. Then, my crit rate would far exceed, and my crit damage would be very, very low. So, if I drop the black sword, yes, it has an incredible passive for Keishing, but we're talking in general here. For the Blackcliff sword, now I'm supplementing my crit damage to reach that good balance of sustained DPS. Now, here's my second reason I think they're good/viable. They're super easy to refine. Even if you're not a mega whale, if you have the resources / pull the dupes and get lucky, you can refine this to max refinement technically in 2 days if you buy 3 on the last day of the month and then the first day of the month. And that is a huge upgrade considering they talk about refinement 5s being so much better. Which means for dolphins or casual spenders, this isn't unreasonable to max refine. Yes, this does come case by case, but it is entirely reasonable to say that you can max refine one of these. If you're not in a position to whale for a 5-star weapon, or if you need to outfit a character that you don't have a weapon for because the battle pass comes out every 6 weeks, or the free-to-play alternative, you're just not getting those drops to get it refined. I think that for most players, this could be an easily accessible stat boost that could even be available to a lot of free-to-play players at this point. Obviously, if you're whaling for 5-star weapons, this doesn't apply to you. But I think they can be compared. I'm going to do 2 of the exact same bosses with an R3 Blackcliff sword and an R1 Black sword on this Keishing, and we'll see what the comparison looks like. Looking first at the Black Sword versus the Blackcliff Longsword, the Black Sword being the sword you get from the Battle Pass. The crit rate compared to the crit damage is about the same thing as a circlet's crit rate compared to the circlet's crit damage. And then the base attacks are only varied in this particular example because I have one at level 90 because it's best in slot for Kaching, and one at level 80 because I was running it prior to getting the Black Sword. However, the big difference here is looking at the refinement rank. I have my Blackcliff sword at refinement rank 3, and they all have the same passive, which every time you refine it goes up by 3%. So it starts at 12%, it goes to 15%, it goes to 18%, 21%, 24% for 30 seconds. It has a 3-stack boost, so I guess if it's additive, you're looking at a max of 72% attack, which is huge. Yes, that it does not include the whole 30 seconds, but it's still super strong. It's not Wolf's Gravestone strong, but it's a very nice buff. And obviously, like I talked about earlier, the crit damage gives you that stat balance to deal consistent sustained damage. The Black Sword specifically might be better for Kaching because normal and charged attacks do 20% bonus damage at refinement 1, and you can heal when you do crits. That's a pretty big deal. Let's move on to the next one. Next, looking at the Blackcliff Pole versus the Deathmatch. The Deathmatch passive, where if there are at least 2 enemies nearby, the attack is increased by 16%, and if there's less, it's 24%. Yes, you get the defense bonus, like it's a good in a one-on-one situation, but the Blackcliff Pole at refinement 3, which you can do immediately, is still a higher attack percent. It is only 2%, and the duration might not be as long, but it does stack up to 3 times. And if you haven't noticed, the polearm's crit rate and crit damage are higher than any of the other weapon archetypes. The crit rate in the Battle Pass weapons is only 6%, and the crit damage is 8%, or 9%, which is a huge difference. I'm personally considering running one of these 2 weapons on my Zhongli, depending on which one feels better when he comes out. The next one on our list is the Serpent Spine versus the Blackcliff Slasher. The Blackcliff obviously has the same passive, but the Serpent Spine deals every 4 seconds a character is on the field, they deal 6% more damage and take 3% more damage. And it goes up to 5 stacks, resetting when the player leaves the field. But this is also considered not super great by almost everybody. But then, why is the Blackcliff Slasher not at least comparable, and in this case, I think significantly better? Yes, it might not be as free to play as the prototype Aminus, but that doesn't mean that it's not usable. It's a good alternative if you don't have a Wolf's Gravestone, or if you're not getting those drops to get the refinements, but for some reason you pulled 12 Lisas, and now you can get all 5 refinements. Totally viable option. Now, looking at the Solar Pearl compared to the Blackcliff Amulet. This one might be a little more situationally better. The normal attacks increasing elemental skill and elemental damage does sound very good for a caster as opposed to just an attack boost, because they're not auto-attacking as much, like Mona is casting her elemental burst, Sucrose, same thing. They're enabling your team as opposed to being a carry. So on this one, I do understand how the Solar Pearl outshines the Blackcliff Amulet. Finally, moving on to the Viridescent Hunt and the Blackcliff Warbow, which have the lower crit damages at the 8% and 6% because they're ranged. The chance to generate a Cyclone is I just don't think it's that useful. I do have it. I have used it. It was my first Battle Pass weapon. I only got the Black Sword on the second one. But I understand the crit rate is very nice, but I don't think it's any better or any more reasonable to choose the Viridescent Hunt for the crit rate when, if you have a crit rate circlet, you can run the Blackcliff Warbow and you still get a big damage buff. I think it's a better option in this case, and it has a higher base attack, oddly, but it's also a better, or at least equivalently valued, option for players that are willing to spend a small amount of money. Like, you're still paying for the Battle Pass, and you don't necessarily have to pay for the Blackcliff weapons. So ultimately, I don't think these weapons are best in slot for the game or the end-all be-all weapon by any means, but I do think they're accessible and reasonable options that can supplement the stats you've rolled on your artifacts. And they're much more accessible than a 5-star, or they're easier to refine than the one every 6-week Battle Pass weapon. In the case of the Star Glitter shop for November, I'd take Bennett over the weapons, but I'd take a weapon over a Lisa dupe. Yes, there are some people who want to build Lisa, but if you need another Claymore and you can't find that prototype piece, but you have the Star Glitter, I say go for it. Same thing with the one-handed sword. The only one that I'm super up in the air with is the Catalyst. I think the other ones stand comparably to the Battle Pass weapons and to some of their free-to-play options. Do I think they're best in slot? No, but I think they are accessible and probably top 5 in a lot of cases just for that crit damage substat alone. Wrapping this up, this has been my rundown on why I think the Blackcliff weapons are getting slept on pretty hard. I hope everyone had a great holiday week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in a few days when Zhongli drops for my showcase. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.